In an earlier video, I explained how app parts and web parts were different in that web parts were standalone pieces of functionality that you could add to your page, and app parts were also standalone pieces of functionality, but they were tied intrinsically to your site. Um, they were connected to an app which was based on your site. And I'll show you a bit more about what this means. So if I want to see the apps that are on my site, I can go to Site Contents here, or I can click on Settings in the top right and go to Site Contents. Here I can see that I have four apps. I've got Site Assets, Site Pages, Documents, and the microfeed. Now, if you're used to SharePoint 2010 and 2007, you'll understand these as lists and libraries. Well, really, they're all just lists, and we'll get into more detail about lists and how to use them in later videos. But Microsoft has changed the model since SharePoint 2010, and it has called all your lists and libraries apps, and also opened up the market to allow you to go out and buy third-party apps to add them to your site, and you can reuse these, add them to pages, and interact with them. So even though the list and library still exists, these are now all called apps. So if I want to add an app to my site, I click on Add an App here, and I can see the apps that I have available to me. So these are all the apps that I can add. And again, if you're familiar with SharePoint 2010 or 2007, you'll recognize a lot of these regular ones, the document library, the custom list, your tasks. These are all essentially the same as they were in 2010, but they're now called apps. Every app is unique, every app is different, so it's important to really understand each one and ensure that it suits your needs. Obviously, you have the ability to create a custom list if you have your own requirements, and we'll get into defining custom lists a bit later. So if I want to add this new contacts app, for example, which will allow me to store contacts, so it tells me here it's a list of people who my team works with or whatever, I can now add this app to my site. I'll call this My Contacts app, create it, and I can see the Contacts app is now added here. Now, I can click on the Contacts app. I can add a new item. I'll get into this kind of stuff in a later video. You see, it gives me all the fields for storing a contact here. What I'd like to show you is to link this back to how I talked about web parts and app parts. If I go back to my home page and I go to edit my home page, and I go now to insert, and I go to app part, I can see that my contacts app is now available, whereas it wasn't before, because this is now linked to the specific instance of that app on this site. If I press add, now this looks very much like a web part. It functions very much in the same way, except it's linked to my contacts app. And if I had any contacts in here, it would display them.